Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Steve, your host, and in this final episode of our Dragon M4A1 build, we are going to do the weathering. I'm going to put some final assemblies on, and then we'll do a final reveal. Hope you guys can stick around for the video. You guys have a great day, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, this is my usual weathering method. What I do is I take a mineral spirits with some raw umber or some burnt sienna and just kind of a soupy mix. I just get it into places where I think there'd be shadows. So you can see here I'm working on the turret a bit, and then I'm going to move over to the lower. So really any place you would have an edge or a corner, or perhaps, you know, something underneath a panel or around, like say these splash cards. Doesn't have to be too precise, because what you're going to do in the next step, once we let this settle, is with some Naples yellow and some white, you'll just kind of push it into the corners. So you can just see what I'm doing here. Nothing, it's not precise, just wherever there's a corner or where I think a shadow would be. So I'll just let you guys watch the process, and I'll chirp in as needed. And we'll do a little bit of work on the lower. Because this is Italy, I'm just going to keep the darker shades, just not use a lot of the darker shades on the lower. I'm going to use a lot of Naples yellow and some white down there, because in my view, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I just don't think that the Italian campaign, when this vehicle was there, I'm assuming it was spring, summer, fall, so I don't think it would be that muddy. So now what we've done is I've let the, call it a pin wash, that sloppy pin wash of raw umber and mineral spirits. I've let that kind of set for about 15-20 minutes, because now what you're going to do here is we're going to dot Naples yellow in and around the vehicle. And unlike what other people do with a dot wash where they're using solvents to bring it down, we want to have the brush completely dry, because if the brush has solvent on it, what it does is, instead of grinding it into the paint, because that's what we're doing here, you just end up pushing it around. So I'm going to put some dots on here, then I'm going to come back with a very short bristled, stiff brush, but dry. That's the key with this technique, what we're going to do now. And what this will do is, as we grind it into the paint, it's going to lighten up the paint and give it kind of a dusty patina. So here we go. The grinding process has started, and you can see that the paint really, even though it's a dot and there's no solvent involved, you can really spread it around. And if you have photo etch or you have little parts, just be careful, because this is an excellent way to knock those pieces off while you're stippling this paint in. So just be careful for that. You know, I can almost recommend, if you've got some very delicate pieces, to put them on after this, and that way you're not knocking, you know, little bits and pieces off. And while you're holding the model down and stippling, just don't put too much pressure on it, because you don't want you don't want to, start upsetting the suspension where you end up knocking things off of that. Because I find when I get close to finishing, that's when I end up doing the most knocking of parts off. So just take it easy, and you can see we're just kind of grinding it in, and you can see that the green is certainly lightening up. And later on in this step, we will be using a bit of white just to really lighten it up. The other thing this does is we brush painted the camo, and this kind of softens the edges. It's still hard edge, but it softens the edges. And if you've got brush strokes from painting the camo, it kind of smooths all those out where you look like you've got that airbrush finish. So we're working our way around, and you can see we're just pushing the darker shades of the raw umber back into the corners where it's not all spread out. One of the things that you want to be careful about is, as you do this, you're working with, here we're working with Naples yellow. You'll start to pick up, even though it's somewhat dry, you'll start to pick up those darker, the raw umber. And at that point, you may want to switch brushes or clean it and make sure it's very dry. Do not do this with a wet brush because it'll really screw it up. So I've used 2 or 3 brushes to get this right, just because I need the yellow to be yellow. I don't need it to be kind of a brownish yellow. So we're moving along here, and you can see, let's see here, you can see on the rear deck you've got the intake, that large hatch on the rear deck. You can see that that's lightened up significantly, and that the front is starting to lighten up. So now we're going to just introduce a bit of white, and what the white will do is just lighten it up even more. And with this technique, start with less, work your way, and once you get comfortable with this, you'll know how much you need and when you should stop, because there's definitely a point where instead of giving a filter effect to the paints you're using, you're actually painting in the color you're stippling in, so you don't want to go that far. And what I always recommend is less is more. Work your way to more, because it's a lot easier to add than it is to subtract from this. And again, I just want to get things a bit lighter. What I like to do, I think it's called zenith lighting. And just on the upper surfaces, anything that would be in direct sun would be lighter than, say, it would be on the side. And I'm pretty sure that's an artificial thing that we introduce into scale modeling, where in the real world, I don't know if it would be like that. But in scale modeling, it certainly helps certain other items pop out there for you. So we've got some things near the rear we need to be careful, because we've got tools, we've got the rear taillight guards, and we just need to be careful that we're not going to knock them off and send them into orbit with the stippling method. And you can see it's starting to take effect. Some guys may achieve this with color modulation, which is fine. And I think on vehicles that have sharp edges, like a welded hole Sherman would be perfect. This with the rounded edges, I'm more comfortable doing it this way. And we're going to apply the same here to the turret. And again, we're just going to push the dark shade of raw umber. We're just going to push that back into the corners, around the panels, into areas that, will create some artificial shadows and help some of those pieces stand out, or, give it a sense of depth, because that really is the key when you're doing this in a 35 scale model. because without weathering and without washes and even a bit of dry brushing, your vehicle, even though the real one is green and has nothing of that, in 1/1 scale, it just has a presence. Where in 35 scale, it doesn't have that presence, so you kind of have to artificially induce that, and that's what this method does. So what we're going to do is, now we're going to use some more white. We're just going to lighten it up on the upper surfaces. Again, it's always a crapshoot how much detail you have added to the model when you do this. I've got the hatches on in the past. I've knocked hatches off. There's a gun sight. I've got periscope covers. Thankfully, I don't have periscope guards on this early model, or that was something I really have to be careful about not knocking off. And again, to add the white, I'm using a separate brush, because if you don't use a separate brush, you just kind of, you're ended up mixing, now you'd end up mixing the yellow and the white, and you just wouldn't get that I think that pop you're looking for, that lightening. So what I normally do is I just have old brushes, old cheap brushes that are good for this. You can get them in a Dollar General or a pound store, and they're good for this. I wouldn't use any of your really good brushes to do this, because this is really tough on brushes. So we want to work on the gun tube. You want to have continuity throughout as far as the weathering. You wouldn't want to weather the hull and the turret and leave off the gun tube with a mantlet. You'd want it all to share that same level of patina. So like I said, I've started with a very low line of the raw umber underneath. Now I'm going to come up and do the Naples yellow. I just got a bit ahead of myself. I was interested in seeing what this was going to look like with the tracks on. Normally with a Sherman, I would paint the bogies off the vehicle, do the weathering on the bogies and the underside of the vehicle, and then put the bogies back on. But I'm just a kid in a candy store. I just wanted to see what the unpainted model looked like with tracks on. So my recommendation is always to do this without the bogies on, or the wheels, certainly the tracks, and just come back, and after you add that, just do the bogies then. It just makes it easier. Okay, we're going to be going to some shots of the completed model. I will tell you this, I did not use the individual track links from the kit. I just found some rubber block tracks I had downstairs, and thankfully they fit, and I don't mind linking length. I just, Sherman tracks, too many pieces for me, and I'm just not ready for that. At one point, I'm going to get a turntable, and it'll look a bit more high-tech than me spinning it around. But I'm really happy with the way this kit came out. There was some things that I wish it had and wish I had done better, but I'm pretty happy with it. So, thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the day.